So that's cool. Hey, Colin Yamande. Manyande, sorry, Colin. How you doing?
Hi, everyone.
So, Colin, thanks for joining. I was saying to the guys, just put in the comments what you're hoping to get out of the session. Just so we can align on y'all's expectations, right? Okay, 2 more minutes, and then we'll get cracking. Hey, Faizan, how you doing? It'd be nice to have some background music. I think they do have like background music. Let's see. Of course,
I thought that sounded like Stranger Things.
it does sound like Stranger Things.
Elevator music.
There must be some science around elevator music and the tempo and the beats per minute, how it makes you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. I had an experience of that yesterday. I went to the dentist, and he played classical music during the and I wonder whether that's because he sensed that I was anxious, and whether he's been trained to do that in that case, right?
Yeah, Beethoven has a calming effect.
Exactly. Would have been
They also,
great.
like you should play classical music to your plants and things, right? And your babies in your stomach.
Exactly. That's exactly what I thought of, and I thought, you know what, this would be good to record with Fycely. You know, the difference of like walking in and the moment that I was having my treatment compared to when I was done. It actually does help.
Okie dokie. All right, cool. We'll get started. So thanks everybody for joining. I'm sure more people will join as we go, but this will be available on YouTube and LinkedIn Live after the session. So those who missed it can always watch it after the fact. We want it to be interactive as well. So just drop your questions, anything you want to know in the comments. So Habib says, first time is attending this event, hoping to brainstorm with like minds. Yeah, it's perfect. So yeah, just engage with us. Let us know your comments as we're going, because we're going to cover quite a lot of important content around building with AI. Our journey with Fycely as a reference. So some of you might know me since I set up the live stream, probably looked at my LinkedIn. Most of you might not know Dr. Shaz. So I'll let her introduce herself and then we'll get started.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Batsy. So my name's Dr. Shazmin Majid. I'm a research psychologist that has a background in human-computer interaction. I've been a researcher for over 10 years. I started off primarily working in the field of psychology, working actually with criminals and in criminal psychology, and all the way to user experience and how do we interact with technology, and now more so, how do we interact with AI? And yeah, I'll come to the story around how we came to Fycely a little bit later. But thank you everyone for joining today, and yeah, looking forward to unpacking this with you.
Yeah, thanks, Dr. Shaz. So your psych background.
Yes.
Our first interaction, I was like, who's running the interview? Are you like during the session? You probably were, weren't you?
Everyone always says that. Like, if I collected a dirham for every time someone said to me, "Oh, well, that means like you can read my mind," then then I wouldn't need to do any of this. I guess I'd be infinitely rich.
You're telling us you can't read minds. That's a disappointment. That's an anticlimax.
Whether I do or don't, nobody would ever know.
Hey, Honey James, thanks for joining. curious to know what are the biggest hurdles when moving an AI project from a demo to a live scalable product? Awesome.
Very good
Cool.
question.
So we'll talk about that. That's a really good question. So first thing we're going to cover, essentially this session is going to be in 3 parts. What is Fycely? Who is it for? And what are our plans? And the second session is the more practical kind of session where I show you Fycely, how we actually built it with AI. And then there'll be a dedicated Q&A session at the end. But like I'm saying, feel free to just ask us questions as we go along. And some of the questions have started coming in the chat, so we'll cover those as they become relevant. So whoever's online, just say hi in the comments, and yeah, drop your questions as we go. So over to you, Dr. Shaz. Tell us about this project. How did it come about? What is it? Who is it for?
I guess in my wild journey within the world of research, there's been a lot of things I've come to understand. And one major factor that I've come to understand in the last 5 years was around the gap between what users or customers can sometimes say and what is happening. And coming from a background of psychology, especially cognitive psychology, there's always been a lot of value in understanding experiences through the lens of biometric research, in that what is objectively happening within our experience of something. And in recent years, UX research has changed, customer research has changed, and the needle is always moving to understand the user more than ever before. So I came across a lot of techniques in my journey where I was looking at more kind of biometric research methods, looking at things like EEG, for instance, looking at galvanic skin response, looking at eye tracking data, looking at facial expression analysis. In my previous role, I was leading user research at a company where we were looking at facial expression data and how that can be used to diagnose things like depression and anxiety. And this is where I really learned about the value of looking at, biometric data. So in previous conversations and in previous lives, these kinds of methods are or were very sorry, a bit of background noise there. Very complex, usually for, the more kind of science-orientated people and it produces lots of complex and convoluted data, and really getting insights was very difficult and very time-consuming. But now, Fycely basically serves the purpose of getting those super intricate scientific insights quicker, easier than ever before, because they really plug into this initial problem that I mentioned around what people say and what happens, what's happening in the body. So Fycely is a customer user research tool that provides biometric research methods to everybody. You don't have to be a scientist anymore to understand what is happening. And the first metric that we've been working on is actual facial expression analysis within the context of experience, in that what is the emotional experience when people are going through, journeys we've designed, experiences we've designed. And this is the first kind of iteration of Fycely. And the problem that we're solving is that we're not just relying on what people are saying in user research, is actually what's happening. Who is our customer? Our customer is anybody who is interested in pushing the needle in how they understand their users, basically. So anyone who's developing any type of experience, may that even be advertising to digital experiences, even in-person experiences, there are our customers. So that is kind of a roundabout of Fycely. I'm sure some of you have also, kind of seen the stuff that myself and Batsy have been, kind of posting about Fycely. Anything I missed there, Batsy?
No, I think that was pretty comprehensive. So essentially, you're saying Fycely helps people understand what their customers are feeling. And the reason we wanted to tackle that problem is it's dominated by really large players, right? And a lot of the software out there is super expensive and super technical because you need to be a researcher to understand it.
Yes, exactly. not just a researcher, someone who can read things like, EEG data or any kind of biometric data. And believe me, that's super, super complex data that takes days and days and days, weeks and weeks to analyze. But with Fycely, you can do the analysis within a couple of hours, and that's the difference there is democratizing complex research methods for the mass, whether you're a designer, whether you're a researcher, whether you're an advertiser or a market research professional. We want to bring these methods to the world and make them as easy as possible to use and interpret.
Awesome. So on that note, I'll jump into a quick demo, 2-second demo, and I'll show you exactly what we're talking about. And then ultimately, we'll show you how we actually built the platform and hopefully inspire you to do the same. So I'm gonna share my screen. Let me know when it's visible. All right, you can see it. I think you can see it, right?
Yeah, we can see it.
Perfect. Okay, cool. So Fycely.com, like we're saying, we've built a platform that helps you understand your users like never before. So how that actually works in practice, and everything you're seeing here was obviously built with what we're calling AI, specifically Lovable. So if you've never used Lovable, highly recommend it. It's super user-friendly and has a lot of out-of-the-box integrations that help you build software pretty quickly. And we'll get into some of that just now. So essentially, the way Fycely works is we analyze videos to scan and identify user emotions. And each video you analyze uses credits, which you see here. And you create projects for your different studies. So for example, if you're running a personal finance study, you can upload videos within that. And like you see here, you can analyze the expressions in that video, and then you can view the results of the analysis. So I created a quick little video here that we can use as an example. So typically with usability testing videos, you've got the prototype on screen and the face of your user going through that experience, right, of the prototype. So it allows you to actually see if there's confusion, if there's joy. You can actually see what part of the journey or what screen triggered that emotion, right? So that's essentially what Fycely allows you to do. So important part of the platform is the emotion overview. So you've got a chart on the right here. And if you click anywhere on the chart, it'll show you where those emotion peaks were for our 5 primary emotions. So basically we're tracking happiness, sadness, anger, confusion, and surprise. Neutral is an important metric that we added after our initial testing, because essentially when you're going through digital experiences, you're not really going through a massive range of emotions, right? It's not like you're watching a movie or a theater production, right? So most of the time, a user's expression is actually pretty neutral. So it's important for us to add that emotion, because it basically helps us remove a lot of the noise that we were getting before and makes the results a lot more accurate. So you can toggle between surprise, confused, anger, sadness, etc., and click and see where those emotions were being felt and what confidence level we have that that emotion was actually accurate. So for example, here we're saying surprise has a 68% confidence level that this person was surprised. Then we've got these 6 sections that gives you an AI written summary of the analysis, emotion breakdowns showing you the most prevalent emotions going down. You've got valence score, which measures the overall emotions that the person was going through, right? So was it predominantly a negative experience for that user, or predominantly a positive experience for that user? So that's what the valence score is. So typically when you're running these studies, you want to focus on videos with a negative valence, because that's where a user was distressed, right? If the video has a positive valence, you don't have to worry too much, because it tells you that person had a predominantly positive experience. Then finally, key moments just allows you to quickly jump to moments in the experience where the person was happy or sad, etc. So if you click confused, it'll automatically jump to that moment. If you click surprised, it'll automatically jump to that moment. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what the platform does. We've also got reporting. You can download your summaries at a project level as well as at a video level. So yeah, I encourage you guys just check it out. You can test it. It's live now. Just play around with it. Send us your feedback. It's very easy to send us feedback because we've got the button on the homepage called "Send us feedback," and you can type in and just send us your thoughts.
Yeah.
Lastly, we built a feature that allows you to record your usability testing session. So if you don't have videos, you can just click record session, give it a name, enter your Figma prototype link, and generate a session link. So with this link, you can actually send it to people that you want to test with. They can record their sessions. It'll overlay their face on top of the prototype, like you saw in this example. And yeah, you can analyze their emotions and go from there.
I just wanted to add that, sometimes it's difficult to place ourselves as, digital professionals in the context of emotion. Like, what does joy mean in the context of onboarding? Or what does, sadness mean in the context of, I don't know, login or sign up or something like that? And the next phase of Fycely that myself and Batsy are working super hard on is actually contextualizing these experiences, because what are we interested in? We're interested in cognitive workload. How high is the cognitive workload of our users? We're interested in, things like moments of delight, for instance, moments of frustration, pain points in the journey, so that when we are discussing with our stakeholders, we are able to, provide these moments as evidence for changing things, improving things, and consistently evolving and developing experiences. So the next phase is moving away from these primary emotions, because essentially that's what they are, they're primary, and combining them to create states, cognitive states that make sense to us as professionals. So that's the next phase of Fycely, is basically tailoring it for, for what we need in our day-to-day jobs. Because I can imagine most of you can think of experiences where you'd be like, oh, the customer had a moment of sadness, and the stakeholder would be like, okay, what does that mean?
Yeah,
What does
exactly.
sadness mean? Why is this person sad? So, we want to move away to like having moments of frustration, for instance. So yeah, watch this space. Hopefully we'll be making some really core, crucial changes over these next couple of weeks and months.
Awesome. So just to clarify something, I think the big elephant in the room, is Fycely a startup? The answer
Yeah.
is no. Fycely is not a startup. It's a passion project that Dr. Shaz and I are working on.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't quit our jobs and started a company or anything.
Yeah.
Uh, this goes to show what can be done with the power of branding, positioning, and just being vocal about the work you're doing.
Absolutely. And the power of, collaboration. Like, this project came out of Batsy saying, should we try it
Yeah,
randomly? And
yeah.
me saying, yeah, okay, let's try it. So yeah, it's, if you have an idea and it's got legs, like, put in the extra time, like, and try, like, this is where it's at. It's definitely maybe cause a little bit more extra late nights and a little bit of stress on the weekends, but it's totally been worth it, like, in terms of trying new experiences.
That's actually a great segue to Honey's first question. Curious to know, what are the biggest hurdles when moving an AI project from demo to a live scalable product?
Mm.
From what I've seen, Facely has had two or three, I think, major hurdles. The first one is always, I guess, true for any project, is figuring out a problem to solve, right? Because not every problem is worth solving. And the big thing with Gen AI now, when it comes to building products, is just because you can build it doesn't mean you should build it. So I think that's the first hurdle, actually, for us, understanding that the problem we're trying to solve is worth solving. and it's because we're going to dedicate a lot of hours to this, so it must be something that people need and that there's a genuine need for.
Yeah, and I think another thing, and this is like more general in terms of the discourse that I'm seeing as someone who has spent their whole life advocating for the human experience, right? Is that just because you can build things quicker, don't forget to understand the problem, like from a human perspective. Like with Fycely, we've had many iterations where we've done the due diligence and done the user testing for it. It's something that's built alongside users, right? And that makes it, I guess, slower to ship because we want to understand the problems, we want to understand the user experiences, but not to forget that because I see a lot of people, now like vibe coding, building things and building things over a weekend, for instance. But like, yeah,
Yeah.
remember to plug in to the people that we're building for, right? And that will hurt the time to build something, but it is something that's absolutely necessary because there's so many things that have come out of just talking to people. Like we've had like a closed testing, spoken to many kind of participants and learned a lot about where we've gone wrong. And
Absolutely.
taking away the rose tinted glasses of, like, okay, we've done this so quickly.
Exactly. The second hurdle, I think, would be us actually figuring out the tech stack. So you start with an idea, and our high level idea was we need to be able to map out a person's emotions during a usability test, or even just someone going through an experience, right? It could be marketing collateral that they're watching or campaign material. It could be using a software for the first time or an app for the first time, right? So we wanted to be able to analyze emotions from a recorded piece, like a recorded asset, whether it's real time or not. And then the first hurdle was figuring out the technology that was available to us to do this. Because remember, none of us are super technical, right? We're not back end, front end, full stack engineers, machine learning engineers, or anything. So whatever was going to be out there needed to be something we could vibe code and bring to life. And how we figured this out was, I kid you not, just conversations with ChatGPT. So I'll talk about that when I'm talking about how we built Fycely, but essentially how we got over that hurdle is talking to ChatGPT using the voice mode and basically bouncing ideas around, asking it to do research, looking online for platforms that could do the things we wanted to do, and just looking at the options of what was available. So that's the second hurdle we jumped. And then lastly, moving it from demo to live, I think is finding our first users, I guess, right, Shaz? I think trying to get people to actually use it and give us feedback. You'd be surprised just how many assumptions we made from
Yeah.
like 50 version 1 to what it is now. Massive difference in terms of just the quality and the polish of it, right? Going from something that were just playing around with vibe coding to something that we can actually put in front of people to use.
Yeah. I guess that plugs into the initial thing I said, like not to be in a hurry to ship something. Like remember that, if you're building something so quick, like sense check it. Find some trusted people that you can, test it with and do your due diligence to make sure that, it's something sensible for people out there.
Exactly. Okay, we'll go to the next question. So Sharaf asks, you mentioned something about CTO agents, and I'm really interested in how we build it. Imagine AI teams working together. Super interesting about this part. So yeah, so this is an announcement we made. I think it was last week or this week around Mira, our executive assistant agent.
Oh, yes.
So our thinking for this was because it's just Dr. Shaz and I bootstrapping this project. We can't really scale by hiring people, right? Because again, we're not a company. We're a startup. We're not a startup. We're a project. But we do still need stuff done, like scheduling demos for people that are testing the platform, reaching out to potential users like yourselves to try the platform, give us feedback. So we found ourselves having to plan to do those things manually. Even like Dr. Shaz were talking about was the future of Fycely and kind of what we have planned in the roadmap. A lot of that still needs to be figured out from a technical point of view, which again, if we're to do it ourselves, is a manual endeavor. So the idea with AI agents is to create a team of, I guess, starting with Mira, our executive assistant, that helps us manage our day-to-day. And we're also planning, like Sharaf is saying, setting up a CTO agent and agents under it to manage our roadmap, figure out our tech stacks, and actually start building and shipping code on GitHub. And then finally, a marketing executive agent that has specialist agents like research, social media, community management, calendar planning, um, and things like that. So the way we're doing it at the moment is we built it on Claude Code. There is an article on Facely Academy about how to do this. So if you want to know how we built it, Sharaf, check out Facely Academy. And there's an article there. I think the featured article gives you a brief about how we built our first agents using Claude Code. However, I think to go to where we want to go, it's going to be most likely OpenClaw, setting up dedicated OpenClaw agents that are always on, connected to our WhatsApp or Telegram that we can talk to. When we have an idea, we can just talk to the CTO agent to ideate and figure out and build a roadmap, right? So currently, the agents aren't always on, but we want to actually deploy them on OpenClaw now and actually have them always on. Hope that answers your question. If you got more questions, let me know. Rubab, what's up, Rubab? Thanks for joining. We have a question around launching AI projects. So it's always a mix of excitement and complexity, from ensuring the model performs reliably and integrating it into real-world workflows. There's a lot of behind the demo. I'm especially curious about best practices for orchestrating multiple AI agents like a CTO agent. Okay, so I think we just covered this a little bit. And the way we're doing planning to do that is with OpenClaw. Let me know, Rubab, if there's anything that I missed that you want me to kind of elaborate more when it comes to orchestrating our agents and what the future of that looks like. Okay, we got a question from Prashant. Does it map the changing expressions in real time as the user is using the product? And can I map at what part of the journey a particular negative or positive emotion was triggered? Dr. Shaz, do you want to take this on?
Yeah, I guess the straightforward answer to that is yes and yes, because it gives you really second by second changes in emotion. And also in the future, we will have more of a kind of matrix around the changes and phases of emotions throughout the journey. That's very much on our roadmap. And you can map anything you want via study phases. So for instance, if you're interested in a certain segment of the journey, say you've got a onboarding journey, you've got login, KYC, you've got whatever it is, all the different phases, and you want to understand whether that's a negative or positive experience, you are able to map these study phases throughout the videos and understand what the overall experience is for that user, as well as all the users in your study. So yes, so the answer is yes and yes.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen again. And this is the time on the session where I take you through how we built Facely. Okay, let me know if you can see my screen, Shaz.
Yep.
All right, perfect. So from my experience, there's really three parts in what it takes to go from an idea to building something with, for example, a platform like Lovable. The first part is the ideation, the planning, and the project management. So before you've even touched your keyboard with vibe coding, right? You need to do this part really well. The second part is Lovable, like how you actually vibe code, how you test on Lovable. and how you integrate your backend and everything else, right? And then the last part, as we talk about going production ready, is thinking about plugging in things like AWS. So the nice thing with AWS, it gives you really robust and scalable infrastructure when it comes to storage, and it also has a lot of APIs that you can use. And I'll give you a couple of examples of where this comes in from for Facely. Okay, so going at the beginning with so like Shaz mentioned, she was talking about emotion analysis and how it's dominated by really large players in the market, right? And super expensive software. And because I've been playing around with Lovable, I think I'd been using it for a few months before that interaction with Shaz. I realized that it would be possible for us to build something that addresses that problem. So once we had that realization that we've got a problem worth solving and we knew what the problem statement was, I took to ChatGPT to understand the possible technologies that were out there that I could plug in and bring together with Lovable to make it happen. So, like I mentioned, first thing was ChatGPT. This ideation with ChatGPT is amazing. So, because you're basically just having a conversation with an expert about essentially everything, right? So it gave me ideas for the technology that was available. Some of it was open source, some of it was commercial. So we had to figure out what was right for our needs. And then once we figured out the tech stack, you then ask it to create a project plan for you. Basically, figure out what the scope for the MVP was, because we had a lot of aspirations, but we had to narrow it down to kind of our best MVP for the problem we were trying to solve. And then since we did the MVP for the past, I think like 3-4 months, we've been building up more capabilities, like the record session feature I showed in the demo. That was not part of the MVP, obviously, and we've been building up on our MVP as we were going. But the nice thing is the MVP really helped us to build a proof of concept and have some confidence that what we were thinking of building, we could actually build. So that was ChatGPT coming up with the MVP scope and the tech stack that would make that MVP happen. Then project management was a key thing here. So once ChatGPT figured out the scope and the tech stack, the next thing was actually building out in detail what features the software was going to have for the MVP. Keeping in mind that this was a platform that we needed to build on, right? In other words, we've got features planned in the future. Whatever we're building as our backend for the MVP needed to be scalable enough to add on top of. So what you see at the top there is a snapshot of our Trello board. So typical Kanban style, we started off with a few columns. For example, an ideas column, a backlog column, in progress column, a done column, and like an on hold column, for example. So all we did was ask ChatGPT to break down the exact epics, right, or features, and their subtasks within that. So, for example, you could have an epic called pre-login journeys. So all the journeys that happen before you log into Facely. So that could be signing up. So that's logging in, signing up, changing your password, right? A forgot password flow. A lot of those happen before you log in. So it basically details that epic of pre-login and gives you all the tasks that you need to complete to close that epic. So those little green boxes that you see with 4 out of 4, 3 out of 3, 5 out of 5, each of these cards is an epic, and within that, I had 4 subtasks or 3 subtasks or 5 subtasks. So all we did is just basically take each epic, vibe code it by writing prompts. If you don't have any technical knowledge, you could ask ChatGPT to help you write these prompts so they're more comprehensive. And then you basically tick each subtask as you go along. And once it's done, you move it to the done column. Hope that makes sense. If you guys have any questions, just type them in the comments. Once I'm done with this, I'll come back, read the comments, and answer any questions you have. So this is project management. I'm going to stay here a little bit because it's super important. I think doing this right really helped the success of Facely. So the other thing we did was once ChatGPT had created our MVP document with epics and subtasks, we now needed to put it in Trello. And I didn't want to do this manually, right? Because it's quite a tedious thing to copy paste all those subtasks because there were probably close to 100 subtasks and features for MVP. So what we did instead is in Trello, there's a plugin that you can install that allows you to import an Excel file. So what you see in the back there, top right corner, is a snapshot of that Excel file. So on the left, you've got the epic, and on the right, where it says checklist, is the actual subtasks, right? So when you import this into Trello, it automatically creates all your columns for Kanban and all the cards inside that with their subtasks already created. In Trello, they call checklists. So this was a great way for us to automate even our Trello project management and Kanban board because we didn't have to do it manually. So that's project management. If you have any questions, again, just drop them in the comments and I'll answer after I'm done. So when it comes to Lovable, like I mentioned, we were building it piece by piece. I highly recommend building your projects piece by piece. So don't try and just give one super long prompt and expect it to build the whole thing from scratch, right? Build it piece by piece. So start with pre-login. Once that's working, once you log in, it lands on a blank page. Once all that is working, that blank page, you then build it out, which is our dashboard that I showed you with project creation, video upload, etc. will be the next thing. Once that's working, you move on to profile and account management, etc. So it's all built in modular, like in a modular fashion, piece by piece, and you're kind of vibe coding and testing as you go along. I have a screenshot of an error that you will get as you're building this. So this is from your browser. If you inspect your browser, check the console logs. And when you're trying to do something on your platform and it's not working, typically it'll output console errors. So how you fix those is just screenshot them, put them in Lovable, and just ask it to fix it. And any errors you receive on your platform, this is basically the best way to correct them, right? Just screenshot them, give it to Lovable, and it'll figure out how to fix it. And then a key part of testing as well is make sure after you build a feature, you would write a prompt that says something like, test the forgot password implementation we just completed, do an audit, and make any improvements or fix any issues that you find. I find that is a really powerful way of turning, like Honey James was asking around, how do you take it from a project to production level? That's a really powerful way of iterating and improving the code until Lovable tells you, I cannot find any improvements or performance gains to be had. This code is robust and great. So you might actually find you have to do this 4 or 5 times before Lovable says, check, it's all good. So for example, if you're building a forgot password journey, and it builds it and it's done, you ask it, check it, make sure it's working, improve anything you can. And once it does that, you paste it again, check it, find any improvements, fix any issues you find. Do that until it tells you that this feature has no more issues, I can't find any issues, and then move on to the next feature. I highly recommend doing this. We weren't doing this in the beginning with Fycely. So what I had to do once I discovered this is actually go back to all the features we built and start doing it, because I think we'd done 80% of our MVP. But I realized when I was making one feature that actually Lovable doesn't always, or AI, let's say in general, doesn't always build the right thing from the beginning, right? We assume it's crazy intelligent. It is, but it doesn't write the perfect code in the beginning. So highly recommend as you're building out piece by piece, epic by epic, make sure you're iterating and testing as you go along. The other thing is the full tech stack integration. So this is your authentication, your backend. Lovable is really great for this because it gives you Supabase database support out of the box. It now gives you Google authentication out of the box as well. So it's really easy for people to create accounts on your platform with Google Auth. Highly recommend you try that as a starting point. But I think creating your own authentication solution is just more polished in the end because you can brand it like ours. Continue with Google authentication is branded Fycely, whereas if you use Lovables, it'll be branded Lovable. So you might not want that when you go into production, right? And then finally, the AWS suite. So like I was saying, depending on what you're building, you might want a more robust storage solution. So Lovable is great because it's very easy to set up API connections to basically anything you want to connect your project to. AWS is great, like I was saying, because they've got a massive suite of things you can plug into your projects to make them even better. An example of this is just storage, right? So you can create storage buckets. And so when you upload a video on Facely, it's actually stored on AWS, not on Supabase, their database. The reason for this is just for security. It's more scalable, right? So if tomorrow we get 1 million users, AWS scales to cater for that. So it's pretty amazing. So if you feel like your project needs a storage solution that's scalable, I would recommend to start it with AWS from the beginning, and then it'll scale with your users. So yeah, I think that's it. I won't go into too much detail, obviously, because I think this is not the right place for that. But yeah, let's see if we've got any questions.
Yeah, there's two for Cursor. Is this app for analyzing facial expressions? Yes, indeed. One of our first metrics is facial expressions, and this is the analysis of facial expressions during experiences. May there be user interviews, testing, usability testing, whatever it is, wherever the face is kind of recorded alongside an experience so that you can tell what the user's experience, facial expression experience is during anything you've designed, right? So the short answer to that is yes. How does Fycely's AI tell the difference between someone who's focused, stuck, confused? Yes. So deep focus and pure frustration doesn't look similar in terms of brain activity as well as facial activity. So when you think of deep focus, this has different action units in the face that move, that are present compared to frustration.
Tell us
Focus.
what action units are. What are action units?
Yes, action units. So the way that facial expression analysis is undertaken is that we look at muscle movements in the face, and those muscle movements are defined by something called action units, and these the small tiniest movements in the face that are used to define a moment of emotion, right? And typically we are analyzing not macro expressions like I'm smiling, that's a macro expression, but rather it's small changes in the face, micro expressions, and the presence of these certain action units that constitute an emotion. And these action units and the combination of them underpin primary emotions, as well as whether something is positive or negative, whether it has a positive valence or negative valence. Now, when we look at deep focus, let's describe a flow state. This is something that doesn't necessarily have a negative valence, right? And it's the presence of certain action units that can indicate that somebody is focused. However, when they're frustrated, this is more of a negative valence state, and different action units are present. So we know the differences between them by the presence of the different kind of muscle movements and action units. So that kind of our AI is able to kind of understand that and distinguish between, these different states. I'm hoping that made sense as an answer.
So I want to add something here. So facial or emotion analysis in general isn't an exact science, right? Because emotions ultimately are, you could say they can be subjective because you can't measure someone's internal state from an emotional point of view. You can only, like Dr. Shaz was saying, it's based on the science of action units. So your muscles in your face moving a certain way, a combination of those would equal or denote a particular emotion, right? It's a science, but it's not a completely exact science.
Yes.
So even though Facely can take you far, it's still just a tool that enables and empowers researchers, and you will still need researchers to go through the data, go through the videos, and read between the lines, right? So if you've got two emotions that you feel are similar, then yeah, you would Facely might not detect the difference between like a surprise or a yawn, right? So there will be times where the action units say some one thing, but the way the person's feeling might be something else. So you still need to, as a researcher, as a designer, as a marketer, to look at the data. That's why we have the report export feature. Just look at the data and interpret it, and make sure that you're sense checking the output you're getting. Is that correct to say, Dr. Shaz?
I would say no, not as much in the sense that when it comes to micro expressions, they're very much not controlled by how much we want to mask our emotions. So I would say that they are the closest to the truth when it comes to the subjective understanding of emotions, right? So yes, Batsy, you're right in the sense we have to understand the whole context, and the absolute best practice, and I mean the absolute best practice, is to have objective data as well as subjective data about emotions, right? So when they go through an experience or certain segments of that experience, to subjectively ask a survey question or an interview question around that captures that emotional experience, because the truth is likely to be somewhere in the middle of the objective and subjective data. So it's always best practice to also collect the data, because Facely gets you so far. But if you want a real accurate emotional kind of analysis, it's best to collect both, and that's something that we're also building into Facely as a way, and using validated, kind of scientifically reliable tools that can capture emotions.
Awesome. Got another question from Ahmed Abdullah.
Yes, existing emotions, naturally stress. Okay. Yes. So what we do is we always try and have a baseline state when we're collecting this kind of data. In that, for instance, we'll have the user watch a video, like something that's really emotionally neutral, for instance, to understand like what their baseline state is, and to understand the differences between their baseline state and what's happening in the data. I'm sure this is also a feature that myself and Batsy will have on the roadmap, to understand what is the kind of latency between watching that video and changes that happen when they go through experiences, to understand whether, this isn't someone who's experiencing anxiety naturally. So to have that delta, for instance, is something that we'll work towards.
Amazing. Great answer. Okay, so I think we've gone through all the questions. Anyone have any final thoughts before we sign off? Now is the time. Anything you want to add, Dr. Shaz, before we call it a night?
I just want to say thank you to everyone that's joined. I appreciate this is people's Friday nights. Though if
Yeah,
you're in the UAE, there's not much to do right now with the rain and thunder, but do appreciate all of your time and your interest in Facely. We'd love to kind of continue these conversations, and feel free to add me and myself. I'm sure most people have Batsy on LinkedIn because he's super famous, but if you want to add me on LinkedIn and connect, please do. I would appreciate it.
amazing. Yeah, absolutely right. Thanks everyone for joining. And I think we'll call it a night. So again, this will be available on YouTube and LinkedIn. Feel free to go back and watch it. If you need any tips around agentic AI agents or building with Lovable, reach out to us and we're happy to share. We're building in public because we want to inspire you guys to actually build your own tools and solve your own problems for our design community.
Amazing.
So thank you and have a good night.
Bye.
Cheerio.
See you later.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, sorry. One question from Sharaf. How can I use that to improve the conversion rate of a product?
Oh, very good. Yes. So, I mean, when you understand points of frustration or moments of delight in any experience, especially points of frustration, I guess you can use these insights to, iterate the product, iterate the experience to make it better, which will always have a positive experience on your conversion, right? So it's all about, you know, I guess, promoting iterative development, making sure that we're consistently looking at experiences through the lens of our users and, pushing that boundary to create the best possible experiences. So it's all about, creating a discourse of data-driven decision making within design and product experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually gotten feedback from an early tester where they were testing an onboarding journey, and they actually saw a massive spike in frustration from a user or a few users when the paywall came up. So you might have seen a lot of apps who, when you're onboarding, it comes a point where you have to pay for it or skip that kind of thing. So they underappreciated just how much of a friction point that was for their customers. So understanding emotions throughout the journey helps you, because typically when you're testing a journey and you ask your customers what it was like, usually you'll get either neutral or semi-positive responses, like it was okay, it was nice, it was good. And yet they faced some frustration during the journey. So I think in terms of conversion, it's really good to understand the moments of frustration and the moments of delight, because you can amplify those moments of delight and do more of that. And you can try to mitigate or eliminate the moments of frustration. So that'll help you with drop offs and conversions, and also probably shoot your NPS score with your customers to the moon, because you actually understand how they feel and you're capitalizing on those moments of delight.
Yeah. And think about it, like think about the best possible experiences that we use on a day-to-day basis, right? They make us feel something, whether it's tiny little moments of joy or it's feelings of safety or feelings of confidence in the experience, right? And it's those apps that we use as best examples when it comes to anything that we're designing or developing. So that's how they help conversion, because it also makes them memorable and makes them also, to the point, fulfills a user's needs and experiences through their experience. So yeah, I think that that's a more kind of, I guess, meta psychology type explanation. But yeah, we want our users to remember what they're doing and, say that it was a good experience. So yeah,
Yeah,
that's the next level, I guess, of user experience.
exactly.
Expressive design.
Exactly. I remember us doing some research around this, and we had a look at Robinhood's app reviews. So if you get a chance, go on the Apple Store and check out Robinhood's app reviews. You don't really find people commenting on the features, but they talk about how the platform made them feel.
Mm,
And you're absolutely right, Dr. Shaz. This is the sticking point. This is what people remember. Like, how did your app make them feel? If you can capitalize on that and become really good at defining and finding those moments and highlighting them, it just elevates the experience to a place where people are actually commenting about the experience.
exactly.
Awesome, cool. I think we'll call it a night. We're like 1 minute out from the hour, which is perfect timing. So thanks, everyone. Enjoy your evenings and catch this online on YouTube and LinkedIn afterwards. Take care. Bye.
Everyone, bye.